Here we go, and welcome to The Last Video Store, the show where I, Alex Toliopoulos, talk to cool and interesting and funny people about their favorite films. Today on the show, we are joined by Swedish comedian, filmmakers, and journalists and documentarians and podcasters. These guys do it all. Filip, Hammar, and Fredrik Wikingsson. And these guys, I had literally the best time with these guys.
Yeah.
The best way to describe them, if you're Australians and you don't know who they are, they would be like the equivalent to Sweden that we have of Hamish and Andy.
Yes.
Where they do everything. They're so funny.
Yeah.
But
they were so cool.
They were so cool.
So cool.
And true cinephiles.
Yes.
True cinephiles.
Yes. Hang around for a twist at the end.
There
of
is
the
a
podcast.
twist
There's
ending
a twist.
of the podcast for sure. But
one of them sees dead people.
and now I can too. I learned something about myself. Oh, I'm dead. But they are so much fun to talk to. Filip, Hammar, and Fredrik Wikingsson. They just made this film called The Last Journey, which is a heartwarming comedy documentary. It is the highest grossing documentary in Sweden's history, and it's traveling around the world right now. I had such a good time with this film. I found it so warm and lovely. Basically, it's about Filip's father, who is in his twilight years, if you will, a very kind man who's had this zest for life that has slowly kind of disappeared. He's coming through with a bit of depression. And so the two men take him on this journey back to France, where he had many of his greatest holidays, many of his greatest memories. And it becomes like this constructed comedy documentary about bringing that zest of life back through like these constructed set pieces and everything. I think it's such an enjoyable film. I mean, particularly for me, that's kind of what I make. Finding Years, Finding Drago, all those kind of things. They are comedies, they are documentaries, both of the things together. And it's fun seeing other people's take on mixing those factual storytelling and comedy in interesting ways. So for me, I don't know, this is a home run for me.
Yeah.
I think people have a great time with this. They've been touring it around Australia. It's opening pretty big, or it might be out now. So I'd say go check it out. It's called The Last Journey. Take your folks to it. Or even just send your parents. They'll really love it.
Send them off.
Send them off. Send them to your local Bendy or Palace Cinema. But I think I really enjoyed this film. These guys are so much fun to hang out with. So when we get into our chat with them, it's a mile a minute chat. It's so much fun. I'm laughing so much in this episode. And the way we talk about movies is we're going to talk about The Last Journey as a new release film. Then they're going to pick up 2 all-time favorite weekly titles. And then I'm going to bestow upon them a staff pick recommendation based on their taste. And these guys are big cinephiles. So stay tuned for what happens there.
Say no more.
Big cinephiles. No matter how obscure you get, cinephiles know so much stuff. But if you want your own custom recommendation, send us in on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to this, in a comment, in a review on YouTube, on our social media at Last Video Store with OTTO, and give us your picks and I'll give you a recommendation. We got one coming in from Apple Podcasts USA.
We do. They say, give me a film to watch, Movie Wizard.
Oh, wow. The wizard cap is going on, and let me get my stuff.
Don't know of anyone who talks about film the way Alexei does. So much passion and knowledge for all forms of cinema.
Cinnamon. All
Cinnamon.
forms of cinnamon. I love cinnamon in every way, whether
spicy.
it be a twist or a scroll.
Anyway, my 3 films are new release, Nope. Great film.
Love Nope. Yeah.
Love Nope too. Weekly, Punch Drunk Love. Love that movie.
You're one of the biggest heads on planet Earth.
I am. And other weekly is Mulholland Drive.
Oh my God.
I know, good
eclectic
picks, right?
taste.
I love it.
Well, I'm going to go... this is my thought right now. Jordan Peele, one of the greatest horror filmmakers working today. And if you want a little bit of like social commentary with your horror comedy, especially from black filmmaker, I'm jumping off Nope for this one. This is a film that I think is extremely underseen, called Tales from the Hood by Rusty Cundiff. This is a horror anthology film with, I think, 4 different horror short films, all set in like African-American community in America. This is so good. So many great people are in it. I think it has a career best performance from David Alan Grier.
Right.
But I love this film.
I think I've heard of it because I love a horror anthology. It's like one of my favorite genres because I have ADHD.
Yes,
and
of
I'm
course.
like, this makes sense to me.
I want to get 25 different scares.
Exactly.
But But this is Tales from the Hood. I think you would love it as well.
Yeah, I'm going to
Anne.
watch it.
But check it out. Not enough eyes have gone across this movie. So
Great.
that is my recommendation. Would pair great with Nope or any of Jordan Peele's films.
Fantastic.
And probably Punch Drunk Love as well.
Yeah,
Mulholland
why
Drive,
not?
yeah, actually, no, it is a really good pick. I think it goes with all of them.
You did it again.
I did it again, and let's see if I can freaking do it again on the episode. Let us get into our chat with Fredrik and Filip. Well, Filip and Fredrik, thank you so much for joining me here in the Last Video Store. I will applaud for you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the
chime
journey.
in. Yeah.
Well, we usually talk about, kick things off by talking about the video stores we grew up. You're our first guest from Sweden. So I would love to know, like, what were the video stores like for you growing up and your favorite
Sweden
ones?
must have been pretty, late when it comes to, we grew up in I wouldn't say semi-communist kind of, but we didn't have any of those like Disney animated shows when we grew up. So I don't even remember. And then they came they were called movie boxes.
You rented like a portable VCR machine that you rented. So you rented that and
my
three
dad
films.
my dad never managed to connect it to the TV.
Wow.
So, but those were that was very Sweden, I think. But
Yeah.
then I think we're from small towns.
The greatest part of that, though, was when you rented a film, you also got a cassette with just trailers for different films.
A separate tape.
So
Wow.
and that tape was oftentimes better than the film because then you got trailers which you couldn't see on television. You could occasionally see it in theaters, but just watch. I still love movie trailers because that was the thing. Like, and those cassettes were a bit old, so there were movies like they came out 5 years ago, but there were all just 20 trailers, which was incredible.
The first film I ever rented and the movie box was Mad Max. I remember that at some birthday party I had. But in every small town in Sweden, they had those stores. In my hometown in Köping, which was once voted the most boring place in Sweden. Wow. That's not really that piece of information we don't need. But
Did you vote? Did you vote in the
No,
poll?
that was on Swedish national television.
The entire country had like a ballot,
I
and
still-
this town lost or won, however you want to
And
put
this
it.
is almost like 40 years ago, and people still, talk about that. So it was a big blow for our city. But there was this store called the Video Point, and I remember what you did during, I was, in my teens then. You went down there and you looked for movies, but it was also pornos everywhere. Wow. And they were not in a separate room. So
They were interspersed in the collection.
Yeah.
Oh my
And
God.
sometimes I
That's
remember-
unusual,
Yeah.
though. In most stores, there was a
not in
separate.
shopping, and I remember sometimes you saw your friends' dads there,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Whoa!" Yeah. And,
That's good
maybe
information to have.
Yeah,
Blackmail.
yeah. I remember that, but that was very much Sweden. But of course, I think when you grew up in a small town like I did, there was not much to do.
That was like a window to the world. A friend of
But also
mine.
you just hung out there sometimes.
It was like a meeting point. But
Yeah.
I mean, a friend of mine had a bootleg copy of the Blues Brothers. That was so that was a film we saw like every day after school. I was maybe in my early teens. We always went back and saw Blues Brothers. Maybe I don't know, must have seen it 80 times. And I tried to rewatch it like last year with my daughter, which was a tough sell. It was impossible but that's the way with movies. I mean, they have a expiration date.
I also remember the deals you always got, like 3 for 1, and so your entire weekend was pretty much covered. When you did this, and usually you watched the films at the same friend's home all the time because they had a VCR.
Wasn't there also a fee if you didn't rewind the tape?
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
we'll give you a 50 cents free if you bring these tapes back unrewound. And I'll be ruthless with
But
it.
that's the story of my life, feast.
Yeah.
I remember returning the books to the library. Whatever. But it was.
I miss
only-
the video store days now. And I become nostalgic easily, but
Wow.
I mean,
But I think also it was like in my hometown was like the rich people, and they were not Rupert Murdoch rich, it was just the people who could afford, I don't know, whatever they could afford a Volvo instead of a Renault.
Oh
So
my
they had-
gosh.
But those were the ones who had VCRs first, so you became a popular guy or a girl if you your parents owned the VCR player. You know, that was really
They didn't have to rent the player; they had it built
that was
in.
like, let's go to this guy's house.
My friend was called Gunnar, which is a weird Swedish name, but that's so he became so popular because he was the guy with the VCR and the Blues Brothers tape. So everybody hung out at Gunnar's.
But it is interesting. I mean, we're both parents at this point in life, but I try to explain this to you see your kids just, there's nothing on Netflix, and they get upset, and
You don't know what pain is.
No, but it also, I mean, I remember at this video point, maybe they had like 300 films, and I think probably 100 of them they were pornos, because that was the most lucrative business.
Yeah,
that is a huge fraction. That is a huge fraction.
I might be exaggerating it a little
You
bit.
might.
But not that. You know, it was really, that's how they made the big money.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm going to give you guys a deal here as well. I'm going to send you around the store and going to talk about some of your favorite movies. We're going to talk about a new release film, which you may have had some part in, the one that you're going to pick up today.
Yeah.
And then a film each, two of your favorite movies.
It's a very conceptual show. I love this.
Very
So
conceptual.
we are in a video store.
We are in it. I'm bringing you to the theater of the mind.
Traveling back in time.
Yeah.
Traveling back in time, traveling forward in time. We're in a timeless place right now.
Sure.
This is an elliptical type show.
Yeah.
We are tessellating in times
This
all
is
over
Tenet.
the place.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Backwards
I was
and
trying
forwards.
to rewatch that on the plane for the ninth time, maybe. And every time I rewatch Tenet, I always think, okay, I'm going to try every minute. I'm still in it. I still get it.
Yeah.
I still get it. But come a minute 9 or 10, it's like I'm
like when-
slowly losing my grip on it.
At the age of 80, Fredrik is sitting at some elderly home. It's like, I finally
Figured out Tenet.
But
Can I
of course,
tell you?
the older you get, you know, approaching dementia slowly. So I think
Maybe
now's
that's
the
what you
time.
need.
Yeah,
that's what you
because
need for
I'm
Tenet.
too
You need
linear.
to have,
I'm too
exactly.
linear now, but in my older
But I
days.
see here in the studio on the table here, you've got The Last Waltz,
Of course.
which is one of the. That's I wouldn't say how we met, but it was early on in our friendship. Fredrik introduced me to that concert and that film, and I remember we watched it so many times. It's not only the music,
No.
we also love those scenes where
they shoot
like
pool.
Rick Danko
Yeah.
is so high, the bass
Yeah.
player, right, and they just
Richard Manuel is on the couch talking about how they
I mean, it's
named
not
the
a very
band.
it's not a very progressive film in
No,
any way,
no,
but it's
no.
like it has
Very
some-
interesting though.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
see-
looks
and-
good.
and
And you
looks
watch that
gorgeous.
the 4K copy
Yeah.
now, you can see the coke
Yeah.
I love
on
it.
Neil Young's
Yeah.
nose.
Yeah,
I can
yeah, yeah.
finally spot it.
I love being on a show where you can actually talk about The Last Waltz.
Yeah.
Go into the,
Yeah.
But also when, a coked up Van Morrison sings, I think it's Caravan or
I'm
something.
not sure about the coke when it comes to
Whoa.
him. No. I think it was high on life. Seriously, everybody else was high on
So he
coke.
was never a cokehead?
He was more of a boozer.
Yeah,
But
and
it's
I would say
interesting when-
Van Morrison's outfit in The Last Waltz is the
Yeah.
worst anyone's ever fucking
He
looked at a
invented
movie.
the onesie.
But,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
bits like a brown corduroy
Yeah.
onesie.
Yeah.
It's so
But it's
gross.
Bold choice,
Yeah, but
Exactly.
incredible performance.
Incredible
With the high
performance.
kicks.
I think it is the best performance. But it's interesting with Neil Young, who was the biggest cokehead. Someone said, was it you? They said they had a room backstage where they had like noses attached on the walls, like
As
a
a coke
ceramic,
joke.
as a coke. I don't know if that's true.
Also, a famous story. Neil Diamond was there for some reason. He wasn't as popular, but Robbie Robertson.
He wasn't as cool at
No,
least.
but Robbie Robertson, the guitar player of the band, produced Neil's last album, so he was
Yeah.
like shoehorned into there.
Yeah.
But he was very pleased with himself. So we walked off stage after playing a song, and he saw Bob Dylan, and he said, "Try to top that." And Bob Dylan said, "What do you want me to do? Go out there and fall asleep?" So that was a good comeback. I
But
think.
I was going to say just about Neil Young. He came. I think he sings "Helpless," right?
He does, yeah.
And he's looks like he's falling asleep, and then they do "I Shall Be Released" at the
Yeah.
end, and he just smiles, and it looks like coke had a different effect on him. He doesn't look happy. Where happy looks like, it more looks like he's on a different type of
MDMA type, yeah.
drug, But it's like
He
I
got
don't
the
know.
shroomy coke.
And then I met my current.
Wow.
I'm
we are-
divorced.
I
man,
mean,
I'm
we're
divorced.
in the future
I'm
as well.
divorced.
Anything can happen.
I'm divorced. But my wife,
Current girlfriend.
Yeah, but wife. Maybe if my ex is listening, she won't
Okay.
recognize this story. Maybe, but I met her at a bar, and then she was wearing the Last Waltz.
Oh my
t-shirt,
gosh.
And that was that's why we're a couple.
Wow, well, I'm going to throw that in your combo as well today. You can absolutely take the Last Waltz home with you.
I always return to that. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't rarely watch it in its entirety.
You got to do
But it's
clips
like-
and pieces, you know?
Yeah, but it's holds. I think it holds up.
I think it does.
But maybe
I think
now
it
we're
does.
losing every listener.
No. This is the show where they'll be like, hey, we're in, we're fully in.
Yeah, okay.
Have you tried to introduce your kids to The Last Waltz?
No. They're
For
beyond,
kids might be a tough
they're
call, I
beyond
reckon.
No, but
redemption.
they should be.
I
sort of
did
receptive
bring
now.
my 16-year-old daughter to see A Complete Unknown because she loves Timothy Chalamet, and
Yeah.
she has
Fredrik
never.
tries to move
Maybe
this conversation
yeah.
into.
Maybe that's the bridging. Maybe
yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, but she loved that, so that was pretty good.
New release.
I reckon let's get into the movies though.
Yeah.
We've got some. We're going to talk about your film, your new release film, The Last Journey. A beautiful film, a film that moved me very much.
Documentary.
I would love to kind of start talking to you guys. You've been touring this film now kind of around the world, right? And bring it here to Australia. What is the differences you're noticing taking this film to English language audiences? How are they reacting that surprises you or confirms things that you thought?
I'm the one. Fredrik rarely. He's never present during the screenings, and I don't watch the entire film, but sometimes I walk in, last 20 minutes, and I'm a narcissist, and I feel it's very rewarding to
drink
see
to that.
to see what. So is he. But
That
the
emotional
thing is-
climax
but
point.
But it's
Yeah.
also it's interesting to study. It's sometimes like, is there a joke here that never flies? So that but there's not really. But you can see, of course, the nuances. Some things get lost, but it's not rarely about the funny parts. I think it's something else, and when you see your film, you're like, fuck, that's shouldn't be translated that way. But I don't know if it's more language is one thing, but it could also be the mentality and culture. I mean, this film we hear opens on 240 screens in Australia, which is
Daunting. And also-
mind
yeah.
blowing, and I feel like desperate here. I'm talking to listeners. Please.
Please.
But go
See it
and
in
see
100 theaters,
Yeah,
please.
yeah. That's not
there's a
unreasonable.
big Swedish community
Yeah.
here as well. But I think maybe, I don't know if there's some, because it's not a depressing film. It's it's also very feel good, and if you cry, it's mostly happy tears. And I don't know if there's a cultural resemblance somehow, because Australia apparently has reacted so well to it. It's
I think
more,
there is a bit of a saltiness to the Australian mentality that somehow resonates with the Swedish.
or maybe
one.
they
I'm not
just
sure.
look down on Swedes. And they're like, who are those?
Taking
Like,
pity on us. I don't know, but it seems to. Yeah, we've shown it to a bunch of exhibitors, some festival, whatever, and the reactions were through the roof. So hopefully it resonates.
I think it really does. It's like you're saying, it's a really, I think, an emotional film, but in a life-affirming way. Like the way you kind of capture this feeling of a zest for life, I think it's quite universal. It's something that a lot of people get. And maybe in Australia, we have somewhat of an aging population as well. There's something in that where...
Isn't it a road trip country as well? A little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. Because, we're a very big country.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
the way you travel around is on big road trips. And I think that when I think about documentary films in particular, films kind of based in factuality or based in reality, I always think about how they communicate. And I think you using genre of this road movie, that's already the the journey is both physical, it's internal. And that's when I think about those films that really capture a feeling of journey and a feeling of passing of time.
Communication is
Stuff
such
that
a
works.
fundamental part of movie making in a way, or at least at how you market it. And it took us a while, because we have this poster where it's me and Fredrik and my dad, because this film is about me and Fredrik, but going on a road trip with my dad, because he's old and depressed, and I want him to sort of re-experience the greatest moments in his life, because we always went to France when I grew up on a road trip, and so that's what we do in the film. But when I see that sort of the poster is like, it's us three in a road trip. There are more dimensions and components to the film, but I think a lot of people can sort of romanticize the idea of going on a road trip with your old mom or your old dad and your best friend. And I mean, we had a lot of fun as well.
Yeah.
Even though the car was shitty.
I think the car's beautiful, though. It's such a great character. I would love to talk about this idea for me of, because this is kind of my background as well. I'm a comedian that makes documentaries and stuff. But
wow.
I think what I find so interesting that you guys capture so well is this idea of building set pieces and building comedy from reality. Can you kind of talk about building some of those comedic set pieces? Like one that is so excellent is your father telling this great story or retelling this story that just was one of these moments where he became a performer.
The story is not that great, but
the performance is there.
Yeah. Or we try to make him retell us. You know, I think every family you have those stories. You hear your mom or your dad year after year, when maybe you get home for some holidays. Okay, here we go again. Dad is going to tell this story again, and most stories are quite shitty, I think. And so, but he always told the same story about Harry Belafonte on this balcony in this apartment we rented in France. And we wanted him to, as a way of, you know, making him come alive again a little bit. Like, hey, what if he can become that storyteller he once was? And we had obviously no idea. That's the beauty of making a documentary. We're like, okay, let's try this.
But when Filip told me about this was a classic in our family. He always told this story on the balcony, and I'm like, yawn, okay, whatever. But then he said,
you oftentimes do.
Yeah, but when Filip told me, and the fun part was that oftentimes a train would pass by, and he would have to pause the story and wait for the climax. And he enjoyed that waiting so much because all eyes were on him. And we started talking about, can we time a train? I could be on the train and call him, okay, the train is getting closer to the apartment, because then it became almost like a foolish heist. And then it became interesting to me, like, okay, that's so silly, but also meaningful for them and original, therefore. So that
and then also the performance by him. What we kind of like is like you can stage things in a documentary. I think you have to a lot of times.
You have to plan things out.
Yeah, but it's also even though it's for us, it always the ideas tend to come up fairly late in the process. You're like, okay, we're here. Someone is paying for our trip with all these cameras. We need to come up with an idea. You know, how we can. But we also love if you have stage things, but what you try to stay true to is what actually happens. You know,
the spontaneity.
Yeah, but it's like yes. But my dad's performance, he would try to make him tell this story again. He doesn't really pull it off, you know. But I think that was a very conscious decision on our end. Like, no, it's more fun. It's probably more, you know, touching as well, because you see someone back in the day, you know, it's like you being a comedian. You say like, if you need to take a pause, you need to own that.
You need to own the pause.
When your self-confidence
dwindles,
a little bit, you see like to be able to stand there for like 30 seconds, or that's like for the crowd work or whatever, you tell a joke on stage, and that you could see that he's not that good at that anymore. But I mean, we wanted to just also, when you make a film about a road trip to France, someone told me, and that made me very happy when we screened this film somewhere in the U.S. or in Palm Springs. He said, like, I'm so happy that you didn't gravitate towards the most obvious French cliches, because if you hear like, hey, two guys are going on a road trip with an old man to France, it's easy to picture us just going to different vineyards, and, you know, with a baguette.
We said we want to make an Eat, Pray, Love for smart people. Like, you have a little bit variation.
Yeah. I think you pulled that off. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that was important to us. Like, I think it's relatable, the film, in a sense where, yes, not every dad, you know, stood on a balcony in France every summer and told the same anecdote about Harry Belafonte, but other stories were told on, you know, different balconies. And I think hopefully this film maybe makes people think and remember things. And I think that's why it has done so well. And let's hope, fingers crossed, that you must know a lot of people in the industry. Make them buy tickets.
I'd say at gunpoint, I'll force them all.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
No, but it is obviously, and we're so grateful, and we could never have, you know, dreamed this up to sit here and to, you know, fly for, you know, 24 hours to come to Australia.
I mean, why would you dream that? Who dreams of being on a plane for 24
I think
hours?
like, you know, a lot of filmmakers, they know that when they do, I'm going on this press tour to Australia.
You realize how many films you can see on planes going here? It's incredible. Also,
in
there
24 hours,
we saw
of
the
course.
same. It was interesting. I came when we arrived and we met in the lobby at the hotel. I'm like, I just watched A Real Pain, and Fredrik's like, yes, so did I, because we were on different planes. So it's you know, it's a good flight. And we have families. You get a break from the family.
Exactly. Fredrik, you're saying you watched There Will Be Blood on the plane.
Yeah.
How does that work on a plane? Did it nail you?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I was pretty.
How many movies did you watch?
Maybe 8. There was so many, like 2 documentaries and like 6 features, I think. But every time I have an opportunity to watch There Will Be Blood, I will, because there is something about that performance that, I mean, that has been said before, Daniel Day-Lewis. but it's incredible. I think it might be. It's overblown and it's very big, but it's also riveting, and I think it's incredible. Somebody told me yesterday he might be making a comeback.
Yeah, he is.
I hope so.
In his son's film, though.
Yeah.
That's like Bruce Springsteen. That's like Bruce Springsteen on the cover of Cosmopolitan magazine with his daughter, because that's what parents do.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed with him, to be honest with you.
Fuck that guy.
He should have stayed. When you heard about Daniel Day-Lewis, he became a shoemaker in Italy. Then you're like, that guy is real. Now he's just another dad.
Can we talk about planning those set pieces? Like, I like the idea of, with a documentary, people think it's everything happens as it happens, but so much of the time you have to start planning things in advance. Can you talk about coming up with like these ideas of set pieces? Would it be you guys having conversations about your memories and then translating them together, collaborating to go, how do we turn this into comedy?
Well, I think what appealed to me about, Philip's dad is very funny, and their relationship is I think relatable, but also slightly eccentric. And what Philip romanticizes about his childhood is not the average things. Like, he romanticizes a man being interrupted by a train, telling a story about Harry Belafonte. That's weird, but also potentially funny if you can tell it in a broad or appealing way, accessible way. So when Philip told me also that, my daddy always loves when French people argue in traffic. They get out of their cars, they slap each other around a little bit. And he said, wouldn't it be great if he could experience that? Could we possibly stage it? And we immediately started talking about the same minute. Okay, but if we stage it and make it very elaborate, the audience must be in on it, because then it becomes more interesting even, I think. And also more honest, of course. And then it becomes almost like a heist. And how is his dad going to react to this? So I think that was a little bit of a breakthrough. The planning, as you said, was very late for this film, but once we realized that this could be a part of it, and we were heavily inspired by a film we're going to talk about later, The Act of Killing, which showed to us that even though you take on a super heavy topic, you can be playful about it.
That topic is, in the film we're going to talk about, that topic is even heavier than ours.
Yeah, of course.
But I think for us, just how we approach things, in stage things, yes, but also I think you can stage a lot of things, as long as there's that the authenticity is also one of the sort of major components in what you do. And because it is a documentary, because we staged this, but the reaction from my dad is 100%
That's
true.
real. Yeah.
And I think because we're also, I think when you make a film, you want as many as possible to actually see it. It comes with, if someone is financing your film, in this case, we had to finance it ourselves because not that many believed in it. But I'm saying, then you're like, okay, this is a heavy topic, seeing your dad getting old and like accepting that your dad gets old, which is hard, that's what it is. But then you're like, okay, how do we sort of, it's in a way like convincing people to watch it and to maybe start thinking about the sort of heavier sides of the film if you integrate scenes that are truly funny. And that's also life, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's
it's
what
life and lubrication.
Yeah.
For the viewer.
Exactly,
but it's like to make feel good stuff. I think that's what we're always gravitating towards, and sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't. But
what did you learn about your dad while making this film?
Well, one thing I have to say is that I've always known your parents, and he's always been a storyteller, and that's what I partly romanticize in this film, and so does Fredrik, But I think more since, I talk a lot and I'm not the best listener in the world, that's maybe why I, have this job. I'm not the only one in this room. Fredrik is, he's getting there as well. But I listen to my dad more than ever. Like Fredrik also told me, like, shut the fuck up now, let the man talk. And by doing that, I also, it's almost like, hey, my dad is smarter than I thought. But he has so many beautiful insights. And I do think that's also a reflection of how maybe life, plays out when you're older, and you're like, your parents are older, they're at home. Oftentimes, their life is a bit slower than yours. And then when you get home and you finally meet them, you're so eager to talk to them that you talk too much. You don't get, now we actually had some time to sit down. And now I love my dad, and I think Fredrik does as well. He's really the core of this film.
Yeah, there's so much beautiful archival that your father like preserved for this film that comes throughout it. I think it's just such a testament to like what a nice, caring man he is and how thoughtful he is. But also his approach to life is just so evident in every moment you see with him. Yeah. It's just a beautiful, the way you've translated this man's life to a film, I think is quite emotional and stunning.
Yeah, he is such a good, kind man, but many good, kind people are also slightly bland. And this wouldn't have worked had he only, quote unquote, been good. But he's also so original and funny. So I think there is a sweet spot there that I think we really wanted to capture. And I think we pretty much did.
And I mean, I don't want to contextualize everything, but I think it's like quite timely also with, there's this sort of aggressive rhetoric everywhere in society now, maybe, and you just have suddenly people can just indulge and watch this very friendly, good human being for 90 minutes.
Yeah,
and I think we all have those people close to us, or
if we're lucky,
or at least have had those people, and I think he has become this almost like an icon in Sweden because it's the biggest documentary of all time, and I don't know, great success in the box office, but then also it was they showed it on Swedish television, and it's like everywhere he doesn't leave the house too much. I have to say, because
he'll be swamped now.
Yeah, it's also like being old. I think you feel like you disappoint people when you used to be this lively storyteller, and then suddenly they see you like this, and it's a bit embarrassing. But I mean, now he's just like. It's just a beautiful thing that the documentaries before My Dad that were the highest grossing documentaries in Sweden was a documentary about Olof Palme, our prime minister that was killed in the mid-'80s, and it was about the soccer player Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and then it was about Ingrid Bergman. And then My Dad comes in and he beats them all. It's just I think just regular people, they're bankable as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautifully put. I reckon. I think this is The Last Journey. Great film. I'd really like people to go see it. I think you have a great time. We're going to move on. We're going to move on to our next pick.
Thank you. Yeah.
Weekly.
But we're going to talk about some of your favorite movies that may have inspired this in some way. We already started talking about the next one. Maybe we should start with, I would say, one of the great cornerstones of modern documentary filmmaking. Yeah. A much heavier, harder film, one of the hardest films to watch that there is, I would say. But we're talking about Joshua Oppenheimer's The Act of Killing.
Documentary.
I guess, how would you put this movie to an audience that might not have seen this film before?
It's a very original take on a very heavy topic. There was a genocide in Indonesia in the 60s. That's no laugh riot to start with, but that was something that happened. They just killed 500,000 suspected communists. And this Danish documentary filmmaker goes to Indonesia, finds one of the executioners, and wants to do a portrait of him somehow. And he realizes this man, this executioner, hasn't really come to terms mentally or like soulfully with what he's done. He's in denial somehow. So he wants to make him realize and come to terms with what he did in the past. Because he's like almost a folk hero.
It's the opposite to what we try to do with My Dad.
Yeah.
Make him realize what a great man he was, My Dad. And then
so Oppenheimer's method is so crazy. Like he stages a full feature film where this executioner plays himself and redoes all the executions from the 60s. And there are a lot of extras and it's big production. And it's all for the purpose of him getting closer to what he actually did for real in the 60s. It's such a super weird premise, but it's riveting, and we're not going to spoil the film, but the few minutes at the end are so crazy and heartbreaking and also riveting. So I think it's a masterpiece.
And I think really that just documentaries and how people look at documentaries, generally speaking, it seems like when there's too much playfulness, integrated to story, then people, whoa. I would rather have seen just a documentary about the genocide.
Yeah, because there is for sure a version of this documentary that's just straight up documentary, old archival footage,
narration,
talking heads. Yeah.
This is so much better. And I think there's, a lot of documentaries lack that kind of playfulness. I mean, this is masterfully, executed for
no pun intended.
No pun intended at all. But it is really, when you see it, it's like, oh wow, this guy has really walked the extra mile, and he's like, okay, how can I tell this really, dark story, and it's also very funny and absurd. This film, it's just. I remember Fredrik said you have to watch it, and we were on a plane. We were going to Siberia to make a documentary about another documentary in the past, and I watched it. It was like, and I immediately, started rewatching it again because it has that. And I think it's the playfulness, to me at least, is like, how can you approach this subject?
It's almost like the audacity. How dare you take on this subject?
He didn't even started to study Indonesian, if that's the language.
I'm not sure.
But
the language they speak in Indonesia.
They probably speak a lot of languages there, though. But it's like, maybe it's pretty close to Australia.
I don't know.
No, we can't.
How ignorant
I
you
know,
are.
I'm ignorant.
But that was like one of the. I remember watching because it was nominated for an Oscar, and it lost against a film called 20 Feet from Stardom, which was like a very mild.
It's about like Motown singers.
Middle. Yeah, I've seen it. Middle of the roadie. It's about like
you have not.
I have seen it. It's very middle of the road. It's very like appealing to the Academy, probably. But that was
my mom loves that movie.
That was a robbery. That was a robbery.
But there are lots of robberies, happening. But it is really. It's so. I think it's just the genre documentary. You'd love to see more. I'm not throwing ours. Well, I'm throwing in ours. Our film into that mix, but it's like there's so many stories and documentaries that are just told like people think there should be told, and
but it's also interesting when you play with the genre a little bit. There is a new documentary out now about the Vietnam War. It's a series on Apple TV, I think, and Ethan Hawke is the narrator, and they're trying to almost make battles come alive by having people who are in the battles of Da Nang or Nha Trang or whatever it's called, and then we got closer to the hill, and as we were getting closer to the hill, we heard a sound from the right, and they're using footage from probably other battles to make that play like a feature, and that becomes very off somehow. Like that's not the same hill he's talking about. So why even try to pretend that it is? So it's a tightrope to walk. I think.
Yes, it is. But I still respect someone who tries more than someone who always walks the easier path. Well, that same thing with narrative features, because I when I saw that there's a biopic about Robbie Williams. And we're not going to see him in the film. He's going to be played by a
CGI
chimpanzee, whatever. And I haven't watched it.
Turned out a fiasco, I think, box office wise.
Yes, but I still like.
I think it's a huge artistic achievement.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I haven't seen it, and I
just saw the trailer and I was like, "Whoa, this is incredible!" I met the director in LA, and I thought I was talking to Adrian Brody for 4 minutes because I was slightly tipsy. But then when I realized it was this director, I had to I lauded him, and he said, "Have you seen the film?" No, not yet, but I've seen the trailer, and it seems like an achievement.
I respect that guy. Respect the writer, but you also respect the powerful guy at whatever company now that financed the film who put his ass on the line, because I guess
might get fired from it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot about when it comes to movie financing. I think there's a lot of risks, and you need to be brave.
Not working in a coal mine.
A lot of
that'll be okay because the main financer was the Australian government for that movie. So they're like, it doesn't matter. They employed
but here outside
hundreds of Aussies.
You have a whole group of people from Universal Pictures Australia, and they put their asses on the line. They could get fired now,
for our film.
For our film. So
we'll do our best to keep them in there. We'll do our best. I think with Act of Killing as well, I love the way that you put it of like finding a new approach to tell something that, even though we don't know for the most part, like in Western society, know that truth, like the story of the Indonesian genocides, but finding a way to approach that so directly speaks to an audience who goes, this is where we are now, this is the present tense of this story, and here's how we're going to look back. It's like that becomes so riveting in the way
and
that
also
they express it.
I mean, the sad truth is that we've almost become jaded, when it comes to genocides and wars or whatever. There's, a lot of things have been covered, and then to see some, so it's
It's a real gift to be able to do that.
And then you can see, what's his name? That guy in the U.S. who did like Vietnam, like
Ken Burns.
Ken Burns.
That's also that works as well.
It does, but he's not as playful as Joshua Oppenheimer. But I'm not.
He has some playful transitions though.
Yes, there's some competition out there when you do films about wars and whatever, and it's just, I don't know. That to me, it's not always important. It's not that it's enough when you have a great idea, but to see someone pull through, someone who's really sort of trying to climb that mountain, and what a strenuous, hard journey it has been to just convince people that, hey, I want to do this, learn Indonesian, and then I would have respected this guy, and even if the film somewhat sucked.
You really drank the Kool-Aid about the story of him learning Indonesian. It might be like PR stuff.
Well, but even then I respect the PR guy.
Yeah, good. Yeah,
I respect everyone who
everyone involved.
If you embark on this, like, this is impossible. Okay, we were talking once in our Swedish podcast about the man who financed the Human Centipede. It's like, he should win an award. The BAFTAs.
Who would have thought they'd do 3 of them?
How is that impossible?
Every Oscar Academy Award ceremony should have like the impossible financer, and the first winner, Human Centipede guy.
It's like nobody wants to. I saw this episode of Shark Tank in the US, and it's Mark Cuban, who's a very famous billionaire, in the US. This guy walks in, it's like, oh, I have an idea for a movie, and he's like, I'm out. And said, he said, only stupid people invest in films. So the guy, investing in Human Centipede, he probably made money in the end.
Probably, because we're talking about it now. It became a huge thing, even though, have you seen it?
I've seen the first one.
Yeah.
I've never been able to bring myself to watch the further
How
iterations.
was the first one? I haven't seen the first one.
Well,
What do you think?
I haven't seen it since I was a teenager. When you're a teenager, you want to see those like edgy things of like pushing you in a certain direction.
What is
not my cup of tea.
The premise is
A mad professor. We don't want to get into details.
Why
but-
not?
Yeah, well, because you know what it is.
but I just want to hear someone here.
I believe it is a mad
Because people don't
scientist,
know
a
the
doctor.
film.
Googleable.
But it's perverted.
It is perverted,
But
yeah.
that's the whole process of making film. It's like still sometimes you're like, do I wish that I was a billionaire? Well, yes, if I could use my money. A little bit of charity, of course.
Of course.
But then
You would
also,
have
like,
to.
I'm going to invest in films.
So the fourth Human Centipede film, you're putting it right
films
there
that
now?
nobody else would invest in.
But to all the people struggling to finance their films, they should all tell producers, Human Centipede was made. Go with me on this
That's
one.
the bravest human
Choice.
being.
Well, I mean, that's beautifully put to tie the act of
Maybe he
killing into
financed it
Human
himself, though.
Centipede.
We don't
It
know.
could have been self-financed. Yeah.
Well, you have to take some risks every now and then.
Well, that's a bit. Well, yeah, but that's a different kind of risk.
Well, to change the tone slightly before we move on, I've never seen the follow-up to The Act of Killing, The Look of Silence. Have you watched it?
That's so interesting because when somebody told me there is a follow-up being made, and I'm like, whoa, that's incredible. And I don't know, for some reasons, there are some things you never... I know it's there. I know I should watch it, but
I
the
can't
first
bring
thing,
myself to do
the
it
first thing
either.
is so perfect that I don't want to muddle, the waters, whatever. So I haven't seen it, and
it's like Brady Jones. You watch the first one, you're like, I cannot watch the second
I
one.
cannot.
It's, I don't want to get disappointed, but. No, I haven't either. But maybe it is really when something.
I've heard it's a
almost
change of direction slightly, and it's almost following more someone who's a victim of the genocide.
But isn't it
that
like
makes
sometimes
sense.
you don't want to meet someone you really, really admire. It's the same.
But
kind
why
of
is
thing.
it with some films when they have a sequel, it's like you throw yourself over. You're so curious. But whether this one,
Maybe
the first
it's
one
because
is a
it's
master.
perfection. Maybe it's because you feel this is. I remember me and Fredrik watched this film, My Dad, Tony Erdmann, which is a German film. And I don't know if I would rewatch it if I thought it was that good, but it was like, wow. And it's the same kind of, a playfulness once again, even though it's a narrative feature. But I remember when someone said, oh, here's her new film, and you just, I want her to be a genius. The director whose name I don't know. But still, I think when people do perfect things, it's like a
double-edged sword,
But it's like Bjorn Borg, the tennis player. He retired at the age of 26. It's smart. Maybe
gotta go on the
Oppenheimer
top.
should just retire.
Well, he just made a narrative feature as well.
A musical.
Don't
Right?
talk about it. We should not.
Have you seen it?
Not yet.
No, you're never going to watch it. Probably.
I think you might be right. And to honor you, I promise I'll never watch it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
In your honor, I shan't do it.
Yeah, good. He appreciates that.
Well, let's go into your next pick. Talking about perfect movies, I think this is one of the most perfect comedies. And I can see it's got a nice lineage from this film to your film in this kind of road movie, exploration, travel film. We're talking about Alexander Payne's Sideways.
Yeah.
Comedy.
Yeah, I remember. I think I saw, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul Giamatti in maybe American Splendor before?
Yes,
that's a
slightly
good film.
before.
Yeah,
I love that
so
film.
that was the first experience of him, and who is this guy? What a perfect new version of the Woody Allen character types almost. And then somebody said he's got a new film out now with this unknown soap opera guy. They go on a road trip and he's gonna get married and they're best friends. And we were both blown away by it. I mean, I think we saw it in America. We were there filming something.
No, you know what? I think we were in New Zealand filming something, or at least that's because I remember we always ordered Pinot when we were in New Zealand.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we watched it before, but it did something. It's weird because some films you truly, when you rewatch them and you're like, hey, yeah, I understand why I love that. I understand why I loved Human Centipede when I was 25, you know? I don't know. But here is like, I honestly think now when we watched it because of our film, maybe a little bit, not before, but after maybe. And it's like, it's better now.
Yeah.
It's better than I remember it. And that's rare, I think.
Because I'd forgotten the scene where they're embarking on the trip. They stop by Giamatti's Miles is the character's name, his mother, and you sort of I remember this vaguely. They stopped at his mother's, and the Thomas Hayden Church character is a bit disappointed. He just wants to party and get laid, and then when. Spoiler alert, when he steals money from his mother, it was such a, wow, that's such a bold move because I want to love this character. And that's normally what people want. You want to love the characters. And this is such a shitty thing to do to his beautiful mother. But it became way more interesting because, this is self-confidence in the storytelling. Where is this going to go? I have no idea. Even though they're just...
and it's not, I think, for some people, I don't know, for women, I don't know, it's not as... relatable, but they can laugh at men. But I also think what a embarrassing species we are, men. And you always in your circle of friends. I think we're definitely more like the Miles character than the
Thomas Hayden Church.
Good charming Thomas Hayden Church. But it is really like I think we can if you're some kind of storyteller also that so many times people have asked you so what's going on with this film you're making? Well, it's just he's such a loser and it's also a film that's it's sort of there are no real jokes. I don't think we don't like jokes.
I don't find it I find it like we sort of have a difficult time with some comedies. I mean, if a movie is like flat out comedy, it's like it's tougher for me. I mean, I can laugh, sure, but I mean, it doesn't stay with me for as long. But if it's a funny drama or however you want to put it, it lasts longer. I keep going back to the story about when they made Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid after the first test screening. Somebody said we need to axe 12 jokes. It's too funny. It's too many jokes. It's too much of a comedy for people to, cherish this for a longer while. And I think that's the same thing with Sideways. It's not really a comedy to me. It's more like a drama.
Yeah, but you don't feel... It's weird. It's more like a drama, but it's
also super slapstick, of course.
Yeah, but it's also...
naked people running
yeah,
and...
but you never feel anything, any real... You just think they're tragic.
And it doesn't push out of reality.
No, it's not like you, but it's not like you sit there and cry. Our film at best, or I think it's really touching and it's funny. But this film is more like, I hope I'm not like him.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, I'm not gonna spoil the end. If you haven't seen this film, you should. And I'm not gonna spoil the end. But to me, the end is a perfect movie ending. And I wept like a baby the first time.
No way. Human Centipede is more touching.
I mean, because you have all your diagnosis, you haven't seen the end. Probably didn't make it to the end.
We actually talked. No, but I mean,
the main thing here, I think the common denominator between The Act of Killing and Sideways is self-confidence. And that's always attractive to us, I think, storytellers as well, trying our best. But they didn't have to have all that Merlot or Pinot Noir, all that talk about wine is really slightly challenging for a mainstream film to have all that stuff in there and make you feel the passion and I didn't become a wine guy. I'm not that easily influenced.
It didn't transform you.
No, it didn't transform. But still, every time you feel, somebody said a movie is like a person. You need to trust them immediately, whatever. I mean, the more self-confidence you're using to tell a story, the more you can trust the film, I think. So
I think also a film populated with losers is something I always love. And I mean, even our film, we have at least people who have flaws. Even my dad. Sometimes my dad in our film, he's a ridiculous guy. He's also a warm, genuine guy. He's also smart. But I think that's always appealing to just see a film with
lovable losers. Yeah,
and someone who's successful. That's okay. Let's watch this film about this successful guy or girl. No,
Oppenheimer was pretty successful.
Yeah, that is true. But it's like there's a different layer to that as well. His achievements. sort of the effect of them.
Yeah.
Staff pick.
I think we've come to this point in the show where now
it's over.
I'm going to give you a recommendation based on your taste, based on this conversation. I think we've actually led up to a film that I was thinking about for you guys in a very nice way.
Great.
A film about, I want to give you a documentary, and I want to give you a documentary that kind of is about character and kind of discovers a lot of comedy in the reality there, but on like almost a different side of the spectrum. And I think everything we've just said about Sideways has led me to this film for you guys. It's an American documentary, tiny film, really tiny crew that are just kind of discovering something. This is a film called Hands on a Hard Body.
Oh,
Have you
watched
seen
it.
it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'll give you another recommendation for you as well.
No, but I love
Yeah.
that film. It's just someone told me about
Yeah.
it.
Documentary.
So it's such a good pitch.
Yeah.
It's like somewhere in Africa, somewhere in America, Texas, whatever.
In Texas,
it is,
yeah.
Every year, this car dealership to promote their business, they people can win a car, and the competition is like, okay, people hold their hands on the car, and the person who can do that the longest.
Yeah.
Wins the
Wins
car.
the car. Have you
It's
seen
like-
this?
I saw half of it, but I loved it. But
Yeah.
you were passionate about it.
But it's like that is also very similar to
I
stuff
saw
we've
very
done.
like a bit bad torrent file or whatever, so
Yeah.
it didn't really
Well,
look.
it looks
great.
kind of bad. Maybe it's
Yeah.
just I don't know if it's also like I think me and Fredrik have been doing those kind of documentaries and documentary series before, where people somehow living on the periphery of society or eccentrics, and it also captures that middle of America, or it's just, and the idea is because it's also sad, like what do people do to
Exactly,
win,
to win something.
It's like
How far are they
disgusting
willing to
car
push
dealership
themselves?
in a way.
Yeah.
It's like,
I was watching. Philip told me about the TV show Alone, when you're out in the woods for forever, and there was this guy
it's been an Australian season.
Yeah, I know. I saw a part of Tasmania, right?
Yeah.
I think they were, But there was this guy who was one of the last three competitors, and he was so tired and beat from being out for 60, 70 days, and it was winter, so he just he never left his tent or whatever, and he had a little trap that he said that he captured rats in, tiny rats, and that was all he was eating. I'm eating everything apart from the teeth, and it was
my
so
God.
fucking dark,
Yeah.
and then he lost, and it's like such a almost heartbreaking.
That's very true. It's like hands on a hard, and then that's a good premise of that show. It's actually pretty good. It's like one person wins everything.
Yeah.
It usually is that way.
So what's the other recommendation?
I say the other thing,
thanks
Hands on
for
Hard
reminding
Body,
me
good
about that
movie,
film.
and I think calling attention to that and alone, it's like you see so much of reality TV really start with Hands on a Hard Body, like the way they're producing it. The other one I was thinking about, it's a recent Australian film about one of our most like treasured actors, Barry Otto. And I want to give you something as well that's kind of about father, about family, and it's a film called Otto by Otto, directed by his daughter Gracie.
Documentary.
And it's about him.
Otto by Otto?
Yeah, Otto by Otto.
OTTO?
OTTO, yeah.
Okay,
and
great.
he's a famous Australian actor, mainly from stage. Great screen actor as well. He's in Strictly Ballroom and stuff. He plays the father in Strictly Ballroom.
But this is not a documentary.
This is a documentary.
Oh, it
Yeah,
is
it's a
as well,
documentary kind of following his entire career and his last few years of his life currently. He's still alive, but as he gets older and he can no longer be a stage actor anymore. But there's something quite beautiful about that. I think
That
it would
sounds
pair
great.
very nicely
Yeah.
with your film.
I'm going to write it
Yeah.
down
I
immediately.
mean, your taste it's obvious that you have great taste. Because you have
hope so.
the same taste as we do.
Well, then hopefully this one lines up for you as
No,
well.
I'd love to
Yeah.
watch that one.
Thank you for that. That's
But I
great.
think you'll enjoy it. It's quite a beautiful film, and especially like the intimacy of it being directed by his daughter, kind of examining his life and looking at him now. There's something about that, just like I don't know, just something that works and can be hard to watch as well.
Yeah.
Confronting with that kind of
Sounds
intimacy.
great, yeah.
Hopefully you enjoy. Hopefully you
Yeah.
enjoy. But Hands on Hard Body, that's for the listeners. Then, if you guys have already seen it, they will freaking love that movie.
We had, well, still, but we love to find those like. I don't know, weird or eccentric, oftentimes American
Phenomena,
documentaries.
We went to film somebody who arranged an anvil shoot. Have you heard about that?
Oh yeah, Anvil, the documentary.
No, that's something else. That's beautiful as well.
Yeah.
But this is like anvils that like blacksmiths use.
Oh my gosh,
super heavy.
Yeah.
And they put them on the ground and they dig a little hole beneath it and put dynamite there, and then they see how far up in the sky they can make the explosion. You know, how high the anvil will go. And we thought, it's going to go up.
You need to stand pretty close.
Yeah, we thought maybe 4 or 5 meters, and they just blasted it away, and it flew up so high it disappeared in the sky, like 300 meters maybe,
gosh.
and it weighs maybe 80 kilos.
Yeah.
Crashed with a SpaceX almost.
It's famously known as one of the heaviest items known to man.
And
as
we
an
were
anvil.
like, so where is it going to come down? That's the fun part. You don't know. And it's like, and then it bam falls down, and you would have been killed.
Yeah.
So that's what they do for fun.
We did a show where we traveled around the U.S. and we met with eccentrics and so we just loved that whole. Another documentary I saw the other day, was rewatched, was The Devil and Daniel Johnson. Have you seen that?
Great documentary.
That is also an incredible documentary.
And Dig. Have you seen Dig?
I love Dig.
There's a new version.
of Dig.
We should go on a vacation.
Oh my God,
I
this
haven't
is
been
it.
do you know if it's streamable somewhere?
I think it's doing the festivals now, but I think it's very soon it will be streamable. Very streamable.
Because I've seen Dig maybe 30 times.
Also, Party Monster.
Oh my gosh, guys, we're gonna be here for days. You have to come back. You have to come back. You have to come back sometime.
Would love to.
I will do it via Zoom, whatever it takes. We're gonna do this again. But guys, thank you so much for joining me here on the show. We have to wrap things up, but it's killing me to wrap things up.
It's been an absolute treat, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us, and we're just grateful that someone wants to talk about our film.
My pleasure. I love talking about your film. Love talking to you guys. Hopefully, everyone listening to this, go see the film. You'll be heartwarmed.
We deserve
Thank
it,
your
right?
parent. You
We
deserve it.
The Last Journey.
The Last Journey.
I want to come back here.
Please.
Win awards.
The second Last Journey. We want to get that in here as well.
My dad, maybe. Well, he's not charismatic enough.
Well, we can put him through some training. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, sure.
The last video store.
Wow.
Wow.
First ever on the podcast, huh?
That was a first.
That was a
wasn't
first.
it? Yeah.
And you know how obscure that movie has been? Like, we weren't just saying, like, how hard it has been to see that film.
Yes.
But it's on MailChimp.com for some reason.
What?
They bought it years ago. That's how I first saw it.
That's so weird.
Weird movie, but if you're listening, you would love it. And hopefully they love Otto by Otto. We've got to get Gracie Otto on this podcast, the director. She's making so much cool stuff these days.
I've heard of both of those films, and I haven't seen them, but I've heard they're both fantastic. So still a good reco.
Still a good reco. And hopefully Fredrik will now finish watching Hands on Hard Body now that he's had the enthusiastic recommendation of 2 people telling him to watch it. But, give him the bonus. I'll always have a backup.
Yeah.
I always will.
Always.
Always will. I can't help myself. Such a good time hanging out with those guys. Go see The Last Journey. It's quite a beautiful film. And it's really funny. It has some really, really high quality laughs in it. But that's it. Thanks for checking us out. Tell your friends about the Last Video Store. Hit us up on the social at Last Video Store Batuta, TikTok, Instagram. I'm posting to TikTok more. And I promise that we'll be posting original things. I'm doing lots of movie recommendations on the Instagram these days.
Yeah, jump on the Instagram. You've got to. I hate saying that, but your recos on Instagram are great.
They're
it's
real
like
good.
an extra little bonus to this show.
It is totally bonus content to the show. Thanks so much for joining us. Hit us up on Letterboxd at This Is Alexei as well. And love, peace, and hair grease. Is that a good saying? I can say that.
Is it a thing?
I've heard someone say it before.
It's cool.
Maybe John Travolta. I don't know.